So these days, our Unitarian Universalist Association has regions. There are 5 major regions. Some time ago, there were 20-some districts that were then consolidated into regions. But 20 years ago or so, I was an intern minister in Chicagoland, and I preached at a district assembly. So Sunday morning, probably Saturday morning, a couple hundred people in some hotel somewhere. We had good musicians, interesting artwork. I preached a good sermon. People seemed to appreciate it. And then Sidney Morris, my colleague, started walking up to lead the congregation in song. And I did not run, but I very quickly moved away from the microphone. I can't sing. I've been told hundreds of times, you can't sing. It may not have been hundreds. It was probably only dozens. Felt like hundreds. I can hear Johnny One Note sticking in my head. So when Sidney came up this direction, I'm over here. And Sidney said, well, come sing with me. I don't sing. I can't sing. It's okay. You're a professional. Sidney said, everyone can sing. Please come sing with me. And I did. And nobody died. And in fact, it wasn't even awful. And I began to understand that the people who told me I can't sing were wrong. And that they had put that in my head and that I could sing. And I will probably never make a living at singing. By which I mean, I will never make a living from singing. But I can sing. How many of us like to sing in the shower? Some of us. Or in the car? Lots of us. How many like to sing in public? Some of us. Everybody can sing. This is kind of the same thing that happens. So the concept of universal human creativity is that everyone can be creative, has some talents, will grow up and flourish if we allow them to. And if they lack the resources, if they don't have food or money or warmth, if they are abused somehow or other, if they are oppressed, then those gifts are squished and they don't flourish. But if left to their own devices and given the slightest amount of encouragement, if given the time and space and energy and some appreciation, then they might really create amazing things. Or they might just make spheres, which is okay because they're having fun and enjoying it and getting off on the smell. A few years after that experience with Sidney Morris, I was hanging out with Joe Jenks, who will be here next Sunday. Don't miss it. We were at Susie. Again, there's going to be a worship service here. There's going to be several hundred people in the crowd. He's doing music, and he turns to me and the other person standing next to me and says, hey, come rehearse this with me. And we walked into the stairwell, because that has great acoustics, and we sang a song a couple of times, and we walked out on stage and sang it for all these people. He didn't ask if I could sing or not. He assumed I could, and the other person, and we created something wonderful and made it happen, and we had fun doing it. Everybody has things they can do if they're not told you can't, or if they have the resources taken away, or they have there's lots of bad things that can happen to people in the world. We know these things. If those things don't happen, human beings will thrive and grow and flourish. What are some of the things that you used to do in your life that you remember having fun doing, but you haven't done for a while because you're an adult now? Because you don't have time, because that's just silly, because that's not productive. How might your life be richer if you did some of those things? Maybe consider doing it again? One of the things that is often pointed out in anti-racism trainings is how racism has robbed us of many geniuses. We know about George Washington Carver and Justice Sonia Sotomayor. We don't know about the scientists and jurists of color who have had their talents squished until they never showed up. We could have had other amazing breakthroughs. We could have other voices for justice in the world who never even got started because something happened. That's one of the tragedies of racism. It's also the tragedy of all of us. It's not just that person's life that is harmed. All of our lives are harmed because we are robbed of that genius, of that joy, of that beauty somehow. So what are the moral and ethical implications of this idea? It's pretty easy. Treat everyone as if they are special, because they are. Does that remind anybody of something that we might have on a wall somewhere around here? The first principle, inherent worth and dignity of all people. And now that we have changed our UUA bylaws, Article 2 under equity says, we declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. Whatever one of those you prefer. That's a thing we can get behind. That's a thing we should be upholding and marching for. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. Everybody's special. Everyone has a talent. Now, about this time in this conversation, we're getting to the point where we need to say some caveats. Life is more than just productivity. It's not that you're going to be doing great stuff and we want you to grow up and be George Washington Carver. Yes, if you revolutionize farming, if you create 40 new things for peanuts and sweet potatoes, that's spectacular. Go you. If you just bring a new song that you whistle on your way to work and somebody hears and has their day made better, you don't have to be productive to be valuable in this world. Along the same lines, joy and beauty and wonder are worthy in themselves. If we're creating joy and beauty, that is in fact sufficient. It's the only thing you have to do with your life. And rest is valuable and precious, especially in this culture. The idea that I'm too busy, I can't do that thing that you're asking me to do because I've got 16 hours of work today and my phone is blowing up with other things to do and I have meetings upon meetings. And sometimes we say that with all this pride, like we're important because we're busy. And that may be true. And also, rest is necessary for a healthy human being and worthy. And maybe you don't have to take a nap. Maybe you just pull out some Play-Doh at your desk. Don't sniff it, though. So here's why I'm talking about some of this. Eric Fromm says, the key to fascism is self-hatred. So self-love and joy can undermine or prevent fascism. Fascism is disordered thought because you have been abused or harmed or otherwise deprived of natural, normal, lovely joy and happiness. And fascism can happen from the left or the right. But it's a problem wherever it shows up. People who know that they have inherent value and dignity are less likely to become fascists and try to work their will on others. People who were encouraged to feel and share joy don't want a government that keeps them down and prevents them from having the kind of joy and wonder that they want, that controls them and their relationships. Some of us perhaps have heard of an experiment they did on babies, infants, like a few months old, pre-verbal babies. And the researcher is there with a clipboard and the baby's on the table having some fun, and the researcher is, that's a very fat pencil. The researcher is taking notes and then drops the pencil in such a way it rolls over here and the researcher can no longer see it. Some humongous percentage of the babies notice the pencil, notice the person wanting it, and make some kind of indication. The thing you're looking for is over there. Now I'm pointing at it. They don't necessarily point, but they make a start toward it. Their face turns toward it. You can tell the baby wants to help the person because human beings are naturally helpful, naturally kind. As long as we don't tamp that down, as long as we don't squish that kindness, they will grow up and be helpful, loving human beings. This is why our principles and our values matter. It's not that we're just having a conversation with the theologians that died a millennia ago about original sin or original blessing and inherent worth and dignity. It's because there are fascists marching in our street and running for elections, and we need the stuff to prevent that. We need the spirit, the strength, the joy in ourselves to prevent that takeover. Some of this talking about preventing fascism. Preventing is better. We already have a bunch here. We can't prevent it. It's already at the doorstep of our democracy. To counter that peril, it takes more from us. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Do what you know you need to survive and thrive in these times. Do not feel sorry for taking an extra hour for yourself, because we need it. We need to take care of ourselves so that we can stand up against the nonsense, the harmful nonsense. Taking care of ourselves and our others, taking care of the people who live with us or live near us. If you have the spoons, if you are able, when someone asks, help them as you can, or direct them if you can. If you're not, then no is an acceptable offer. You don't have to listen to the guilt or the other words that people pour into your head. Help them find help when you can. Take care of yourself when you have to. I'm just going to make a radio out of this. Blah, 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 blah. I humbly recommend limiting your consumption of media. Some of us already don't listen to any of it. Some listen to an hour a day. Some listen on their way to work in the morning, and that's it. Some of us are doom scrolling all day long, and that outrage just builds, and that feeling of powerlessness builds, and that feeling of who are these people and why are they doing that to this country? Why is the media reporting this way? That does not help us. Maybe find someone to be media consumption buddies. You do all the work this week and tell me what I need to know, and I won't listen to any of the other noise. And then I'll do that for you next week. Maybe it's good for you. Maybe you are in tune enough. Maybe you're well regulated enough that you can consume 17 or 18 different news vehicles in one day, and that's great. Good for you. When you hear something I need to know, please tell me. I can't do that anymore. Please disbelieve all polls. They've been shown over and over to be gibberish, and yet every time a new one comes out, oh my God, this person's in the lead, we're going to die! Which is an understandable feeling, and it doesn't help. Let it go. Don't look at it. Don't believe it. The only poll that matters is the final election in November. And I humbly suggest that whatever up and down the ballot, vote for the people who aren't fascists. Vote for the one who's running against the fascists. Even if it's not a name that you recognize right now. I mean, do a little research. Okay. There's a lot of concern about who's going to be at the top of the... Vote for the one who's not a fascist. We've got 6 months. Elections at 4, and then there's going to be a couple of months of court cases and vitriol and people marching on all sorts of sides. And then there's going to be a thing in Washington to sit the new president. And we saw a few years ago how that didn't go smoothly. There might be something similar again this year. If we are well grounded in our own inherent worth and dignity, if we know we're doing what we can, if we are having joy and beauty in our lives and we're sharing that with others, we'll get through this 6 months. And then we can maybe turn from treatment to prevention. Move away from the most imminent danger into more long-term flourishing in joy and dignity and kindness and compassion. And it all starts with playing with Play-Doh. So may we be. Have some joy in your life. We've already talked about some of the things